So I just want to take a moment to welcome everyone to the University of Toronto, Mississauga. Very excited to welcome and have our guests with us today. The topic for tonight's event is Black Career Pathways in Law. And to the panelists and the participants that are here in person, as well as those who are online, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you. Thank you very much for joining us and being here with us today. My name is Sherry Brown, and I'm the Assistant Director for Career Development at the UTM Career Center, and I'll be serving as the moderator for this evening, alongside with my dearest colleague and co-moderator, Antasar Youssef, who will be supporting us with the online portion of the event, and she'll be fielding the questions on our behalf. Now, the objective of this evening is for students and alumni to leave the event feeling a little bit more inspired and encouraged as they pursue the legal profession. And the hope is that they'll become a lot more familiar with various areas of the law and have some insights into the LSAT. And some of the questions that students asked was about the bar. Always intriguing conversations that they want to know about, as well as how do they finance this pathway as well. Now, just a little bit about how we're going to be managing the evening. We have two great panelists, so we're going to be starting with our student panelists. We'll have a break that will allow you to continue chatting a little bit more, have some refreshments, and then we'll move on to our professional panel with the lawyers who would be able to share their part of their journey as well. So just before we get into everything, we always start at the university with our land acknowledgement, just because we know it's important to recognize the place in which we work and study. So I'm just going to take a moment to read our quick land acknowledgement and just take a time. All of us have arrived here in Canada through different pathways and through different journeys. For myself, my parents arrived in the 70s, and they were immigrant parents who had a long journey to create opportunities for myself, who was born here. And I've been able to raise my own family, so we're now second generations Canadian. So take a moment for wherever you're at in your moment in Canada to acknowledge it. But as we study and celebrate today and identifying the Black excellence that we all have here, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississauga of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work and be engaged with students as they study on this land. Okay, so now moving right into it, we want to take a moment to just acknowledge the Black Alumni Mentorship Program. So I just want to do a few plugs for programming that's available as well. So the Black Alumni Mentorship Program, the Center for Student Engagement is very excited to introduce the Black Alumni Mentorship Program this year for 2024. And we're going to have on the slide an opportunity for you to scan the QR code. So if we could advance to the QR code. Thank you. So for students, I do want to highlight that we do have a few lawyers that have signed up and are registered to be mentors for the program. So if you're interested in being a part of the mentorship programs, just take a moment and scan the QR code, and this would allow you to be able to submit and apply for the program as well. Now, at the bottom, you'll notice that we have the new grad mentorship program, and that one is geared towards recent grads looking to connect with UTM alumni in a variety of industries. So it's not only particularly for the legal space, but if for any of you who are also still exploring, it's a great program to engage and connect with as well. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to take a moment to introduce my student panel. So if we could have just some assistance to navigate to the panel. So I'm going to take, perfect. So I'm going to first start off with introducing the first round of panelists. So if we can give so a round of applause and recognition for our panelists. Today we have Anne Maru, David Adjei, Mariah Watlin Eagle, Zubair Ahmed, and Nathan Williams. Anne is an Articling student at Torkin Mains LLP and a recent Dean's Honor List graduate of the University of Ottawa English Common Law program, and gained her experience during law school as a tort teaching assistant with the faculty, a judicial law clerk at the Ontario Court of Justice, a legislative development intern at the Senate of Canada, and a Justice Education Fellow with the Ontario Justice Education Network. We're really pleased to have you here tonight. Thank you. Now, David is a second-year Osgoode Law student. He attended University of Toronto St. George campus, where he majored in English and graduated in 2021. David has an interest in corporate law and works at Macmillan as a summer law student. He is now a junior editor for the Black Canadian Law Journal, and we're very excited to have you. Thank you. Moving on to Mariah. Mariah is in her final year of law school at the University of Toronto. Prior to law school, she obtained her Bachelor of Health Science at Western University and her Master's of Global Health at McMaster University. Following law school, Mariah will complete her articling at Torys LLP. Mariah has been involved with the Black Law Student Association at the University of Toronto chapter throughout her law school career. Thank you for joining us. We're almost there. I'm going to be covering Zubair and Nathan next. Now, Zubair is a second-year law student at Osgoode Hall Law School. Prior to law school, he obtained a Bachelor of Science from the University of Toronto, where he was the inaugural recipient of the BCE Inc. Black Future Lawyer Summer Fellowship. Through this award, he was able to complete a 10-week internship with Bell Canada's in-house legal department. Thank you so much for joining us, Zubair. And Nathan. Nathan is an immigrant Jamaican Canadian, moved to Canada in 2012. He completed his Bachelor of Honors in Business Law and Political Science at Carleton University. He is part of the inaugural class of 2022 interns from the Avenue Internship run by the Ontario Bar Association, and worked at Starkman Elliott LLP for his internship. So we just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us as well, Nathan. So I'm going to move right into the questions. Now, the questions we've received at the time of registration from the students, we've reviewed the questions and kind of compiled them to gather the main concepts that you're hoping for. There will be an opportunity for you guys to also raise hands and ask questions as well. And Antasar, if you just flag me down and let me know if we have any questions online, I'll be able to moderate that as well. So let's get started. Why law? How did you know law school was the right part for you? And any of you guys could choose to get started to kick us off. He's gone. Yes.
Okay, I hate this question, but it's a question, honestly, I would tell you guys to write it down. This question, why law? Because that's really the main question that, and of course, I know you're gonna get into that when it comes to the personal statement, but that is a question that you're gonna have to ask yourself as you're writing your personal statement. That's like if you're thinking about a brainstorm for your personal statement, that should be the center question, why law? Me personally, I was my dad is an entrepreneur, and I grew up always seeing him be very business savvy. So for me, I was very interested in the entrepreneurial side of law. I'm interested in corporate law. I'm interested in contracts. I think with my undergrad, we got the opportunity with the pre-law program. We learned a little bit about contracts. So for me, I kind of centered my personal statement around that. Of course, we're going to get into that more, but think about it like right now, because it's something you're going to have to answer as you're approaching law school. But yeah, for me, it was corporate law. Like corporate law is all that I think. I grew up with corporate, and that's all I know. So.
Thank you, Nathan. Next.
I've been pretty interested in law for much of my life. I think I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer around like grade 7, and I was just, to be honest, there was a lot of access to like TV, just watching things on TV like Judge Judy or even like America's Most Wanted. So that kind of piqued my interest in law and justice. In terms of knowing that law school was the right path for me, I think that it was not just the interest in having a stable financial career, it was just my general interest in, I guess, the philosophy and academics behind law, because of course there's law that's practical, but law is also quite theoretical. And I really just enjoyed the intellectual aspect of learning the law.
Thank you. I know they're tricky, eh? There we go.
So I actually have a bit of a different path to law. I didn't really want to do law until I kind of started thinking about it, I think around my 3rd or 4th year of undergrad. I guess you would have heard that my background is largely in sciences, so you could probably tell that I thought I was going to go to medical school for most of my education, but around 3rd and 4th year, I started thinking about some other career choices and just thought law is a degree that you can just do so much with, even if you end up not actually wanting to do a legal career. So some people I know ended up going into politics or working in kind of investment funds or that kind of job. So I just thought it'd be a really great way to just open myself up to a world of kind of possibilities, I guess. And I ended up really enjoying the school, and I'm excited to do a career in law. So that's kind of my path to law.
I guess I could answer as well. I've always been super interested in social justice initiatives, and that's the main reason why I went after a legal career. I did my undergrad in political science, and at that point I had a choice between politics or law. There's no way I'm going into politics. So law just seemed, it's not an easy path, but it's towards the goals or the things that I wish to achieve in society. That was an essential step. So that's why I chose law school.
Thank you, Zabir.
Yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up. For me, it was more so the personal experiences I had growing up. The law always seemed like this foreign thing to me, but I had always seen it be weaponized against people that I cared about, people that were members of my community, and I always thought it was unfair that somebody else could use it against them, and they didn't have the knowledge or the understanding to use it for themselves. And so I started exploring it a little bit more, and then I learned that although it can be weaponized, it can also be used to just create great societal change. And I thought this would be like a really rewarding career to be able to protect the people I care about, and then just try to have a positive impact on society.
Thank you. No, it's always good to hear everybody's different pathway to the career. And as you can see, everyone's journey and story is so different. Now I want to ask a question about the LSAT. The LSAT remains one of the major requirements for the law school application. Can you provide us with recommendations on how to prepare? Who wants to take that one?
I'll go first because I got time to think last time. So the LSAT is something that I struggled with a little bit, but I'd say it's one of the portions of the application that you kind of have the most control over, because it's definitely like a learnable test. Like it seems very like this big thing right now if you haven't really looked at it, or if you've taken like a diagnostic test. It seems like this mountain you can't really climb, but it's definitely a learnable test. Like there's strategies and tips and tricks that can improve your score. For me personally, it was about understanding how I learned best. So I tried to self-study, and then I realized I was playing myself because I would just go to the library and do questions and not understand why I was getting them wrong. So I signed up for a prep course called Harvard Ready. I'm not gonna plug them just because like they're paying me, but it was really, really useful. Like I needed the classroom structure. I needed somebody to create like a schedule for me to follow and give me homework questions. And they had like analytics on their website that tell you which questions you're struggling with, which ones are your strengths, so you can focus more time on that. So yeah, my advice would be understand how you learn best, whether that's self-studying in a group, in a classroom, and then just utilize that to inform your studying techniques.
Thank you. And is there anyone else who would like to share how did they prepare and their recommendations?
I'm gonna give you guys the honest truth. The, the LSAT is a very humbling time. It is very humbling, and I mean that to say, there will be days. You're right. There will be days where you go to the library and it's just not happening. Like you can go from the morning, you can stay all day, and none of the questions are going to make sense to you. The practice quizzes you might not even pass them. But if you go the next day, you try again, it might still be bad the next day. But it's something that you just have to keep at. It's something that, unfortunately, if you do want to go to a Canadian English law school, because I think if you go to McGill, you don't have to do the LSAT. But if you do want to go to an English law school in Canada, you have to do it. So as humbling as it is, it's just something you're going to have to get over. There might be days where there might be a week where you don't feel like picking up the LSAT books. That's something I also recommend, like using the LSAT books, doing tutoring as well. But you just have to keep going at it. I will say, I don't want to plug them as well, but 7Sage, I use 7Sage for the LSAT. 7SAGE, I think so, yeah. And I didn't necessarily need the classroom setting, but they gave me a curriculum that I could follow throughout the week. So for each week, I knew what concepts that I would be doing, how much time to allocate towards that, and then I would also do practice quizzes as well. And I think my last piece of advice would be for me, it worked that I treat it like a 9 to 5. So I would wake up and from 9 to 5, excluding breaks and like lunch and stuff like that, but from 9 to 5, I would go in my basement, turn off my phone, and I'm just at the books. One thing I should recommend to people though is, even though you are studying, like you're getting ready to study for the LSAT, don't let it be the end all be all of your life. That being said, don't necessarily like cut off all your friends and, I'm not going to hang out with people anymore. Have a balance. So if you like to swim, if you like to play sports, if you like to go to the gym, if you like to spend time with your friends, still do that. Of course, you're going to allocate most of your time towards the LSAT, but don't let the LSAT be the first thing you see when you wake up and the last thing you see when you go to bed, because you will burn out quickly.
I have a couple points to add about the LSAT as well. I played myself a bit on the LSAT as well. I took it twice. The first time, I did not take it very seriously. Don't do that because it shows in the grade. So the second time around, I got a prep course. I did 7Sage as well. I used the Kaplan books the first time. I didn't really pick up what it was throwing down that much. So I got the Bible, the like Logic Game Bible, Logical Reasoning Bible. Those were good. And I also used the Loophole book. I think it's hopefully still the same thing because it's been a while. And I also found that you need to do as many practice tests as possible. Like it sounds crazy to say do all of them. Maybe you can't do all of them, but like do as many as you can. They're so helpful, and that's when you kind of figure out the trick questions that push you over kind of the normal distribution of getting those higher grades. So definitely try and do as many practice tests as you can.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the next question. Now, beyond LSAT, what other variables did you focus on to strengthen your law school application?
I could go ahead. I definitely did not get into law school because of my LSAT score. The LSAT and same with the bar exam, they were very anxiety inducing for me. And I really, like if there was one thing I could tell you folks, like try to get to McGill and don't write the LSAT, but like, honestly, I probably shouldn't say that. But I think, everybody, all of us in this room, we could get a 153 on the LSAT. And at one point when they're looking at our applications, it's about what makes us unique, what makes us different, right? So I think one thing that we should, or I wish that schools really stressed more was our extracurriculars, especially. Try like, one activity that I had in my background is a nonprofit that I started and all the work that I did around that, and that was really, really compelling to the school. So I would say, like, if testing makes you very anxious, try and focus on the things that you can control, right? Because you have to get the LSAT out of the way. You might not do well on it, but there are still other variables like your extracurriculars, your grades. It's not too late to get your grades up. And also your work experience as well can also play into the things that you add to your personal statement. So I would say try and focus on those over the LSAT, but it's up to you how you want to approach your application.
I think that beyond the LSAT, like your personal statement can be very helpful in terms of strengthening your overall application, because personal statement gives you a chance to tell your story. And if it comes to the fact that maybe on your LSAT you don't get the score that you really wanted, on your personal statement you might be able to address that and explain why. And of course, like the personal statement, it shows the schools your background. It shows that you might have a unique perspective on the law to bring into the school that cannot be measured through the LSAT test. And of course, with extracurriculars, I think any extracurriculars in general are good just to show that you're active in your community. But of course, if you have something that can be related to the law, to show that on your cover letter can be good as well in terms of crafting a story to show your overall development and progress towards law school.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys, because obviously like hearing about this is one thing, but I just want to give you something to take away. I personally know two people. One person got, I want to say, a 145 on their LSAT. Another person I know got a 157 on the LSAT. They both applied to Osgood, and the person with the 145 got in. That being said, I think what everyone else was saying as well, it's not only about your grade. You really want to make your personal statement something that shows the people looking at your application that you're more than just your grade. You have something to bring to the table. And that's extracurriculars. It's how do you frame your life? Not to plug myself, but if you guys want to connect on LinkedIn after, let me know. But but somebody came to me to look over their personal statement, and before looking at the personal statement, I said, okay, why do you want to go to law school? I know everybody hates the question, but they said, I had a family friend who died, malpractice, within the medical field. I said, okay, write about that. Tell the schools that something in your life changed the way that you saw the world, the way that you want to benefit society in some way. You want to help with, you want to participate in like the health law. You really want to stand out, and you want to create a story about yourself that's not, this is what I did in school. My extracurriculars were this. I am a good student because I know how to research. It's more what makes you an individual. How is the school going to learn something new about you from this personal statement that you hand in, as well as your score? So it's not only score. Okay.
Yes.
Quick plug for if you're applying anytime soon. BFL, Black Future Lawyers, does personal statement reviews. I know U of T does it for sure. Osgood does. And it's just a good way to complete a bit of your personal statement, send it in, law students review it. We know how to get in, we're in law school, right? So we know like kind of the tips and tricks, can help you polish it. So it's a really great resource to use to make sure that you're sending in the schools the best side of yourself on your statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What I really like is how transparent you guys are being. You're not making it all pretty, that it's an easy journey, but just you being here tells them that it's a process that they, and a hurdle that they could all achieve. Since we're all doing shameless plugs, the Career Center also provides personal statement workshops as well as personal statement reviews as well. And I always say, the more support you have and the more resources you have available, take advantage of it, because these are the things that you're going to need to learn, is to reach out and connect and engage with the other resources around you so that you're not having to do it all on your own. Now, my next question is, it's about barriers. It's the thing that we all feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about sometimes. But can you share any barriers that you may have encountered as a Black student applying or within law school?
Yeah, so one of the major barriers for me was, and some of you guys might resonate with this, but I didn't know any Black lawyers. I didn't know any Black law students even. Didn't have like a family friend who like knew a lawyer. So there was no possibility for me to like even ask questions about how it was possible. And like growing up for a long time, honestly, I thought that if you needed a lawyer, something bad was going on in your life. Like, so I was staying away from it. But what really helped me overcome those barriers were events like this. So kudos to you guys all for coming out. Black Future Lawyers is a huge, huge, huge resource that I got introduced to when I was at UFT. And as cliche as it sounds, you don't think that something seems possible until you see it happen. I remember thinking I was practicing for the LSAT and working on my applications, but I thought it was like a pipe dream. I was like, I'm gonna apply so my parents don't get mad at me and say I never tried, but I don't expect to get in. And then I went to the Black Future Lawyers Conference, and it was this room where I'm surrounded by successful Black people, successful Black legal practitioners and law students. And it was like this Hallmark movie moment, I swear to God, where I was like, the switch flipped and I was like, oh, this is a possibility. Like, so I kind of changed my mindset from that point. Like, I'm going to law school, not I want to go to law school. And if you think of it like that, it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. It may not happen the first go around, it may not happen the second go around, but if your mindset is that something's possible, it becomes so much more easy.
For me, one of the barriers was the cost. The cost, even before getting into law school, the prep for me, like the classes, applying to schools, I would say was like $3,000 alone, just from the classes, the books, and all of that. How much did I spend? How much did I pay? $0. The reason is, yes, thank you. The Avenue program. If you guys did apply, or if you're still thinking about it and you want to apply next year, definitely apply to the Avenue program. It's ran by the Ontario Bar Association and partnering firms on Bay Street. I believe it's only Bay Street. No, they're across Canada. Partnering firms, they take on undergraduate Black students, and you get the opportunity to get that work experience, but you also get mentorship, as well as they give you a scholarship, like a stipend for the LSAT prep. Because at the end of the day, it's expensive. The books are expensive. Applying to each school is expensive. Tutoring is expensive. And I'm grateful that, that program was like started, because it gave me an opportunity to, that was not $3,000 out of my pocket, right? So that really helped, as well as what was said before, kind of, you guys are already winning by coming to opportunities like this, because you never know who you're gonna meet here. And I say that to say, before getting into law school, before doing the prep, I thought, networking was, this uppity event, and you have to be in like a office, and everyone's drinking high tea, and like everyone's dressed up. But I recognize that networking happens in everything that you do and everywhere that you go. You could be. Last summer I was like, you know what? I'm going to law school. I'm not gonna try to work at like a corporate office. I'm just gonna chill. So I worked in the gym. I worked at Good Life, and the amount of people that I knew, the amount of people that I met who are lawyers there, the amount of people I knew who are studying for the LSAT, the amount of people who I knew were there in 2L, 3L, I have those connections now, and it just came from, just saying, hey, how's it going, and learning about them. So networking is something that's very beneficial and can happen in everywhere.
Thank you. Now, we're going to go back to the LSAT. Sorry, we have a question that I missed online that I want to pose to you guys as well. We have a first-year student online, and they're hoping to know when is a good time to start studying for the LSAT, and when did you write?
I feel like in terms of studying, when you should start studying for the LSAT, I definitely would recommend that like you set off like months, just to make sure that you have enough time to study. I think that like a 6-month working block is a good study time. I think one mistake I made is that like I procrastinated too much and I started studying like about 2 months before my test date, so I was rushed for time. But in terms of when to necessarily start studying, I think since you're in school, it's going to be really busy, but I think you can start studying like maybe during your summers. And I think that'll be a nice time to just get yourself acclimated to the sort of questions that are being asked. And since like you're a first year undergrad student, like you still have a lot of time. If you find that you don't have enough time during your first 4 years, like maybe you could start studying after you graduate from undergrad, because a lot of people take gap years. A lot of people come back to law school as mature students where they're like a bit older than the other students, and that's perfectly fine as long as you as long as you finish school on like your own time.
Thank you. Are you able to add?
I think I started, I think that's a good point about the summer. I think I wrote in September or October, and I spent the whole summer studying, so about 4 months the second time around. The first time around was a month or two, and it was not enough.
Thank you very much for that. And thanks for the question to our recipient online. Now, my question is going to be around transitioning from undergrad to law school. Can you share any challenges you encountered, and reflecting on your experience, how would you recommend for others to overcome those challenges that you experienced?
I can go again. So I actually struggled quite a bit with the transition to law school, just because my undergrad degree was all Scantron, multiple choice exams for the whole 4 years. And then you go to law school and it's writing these huge long essays in 3 hours, like 6,000 words. Some of these professors expect you to do, and it's a lot, and it's very different than how we're tested a lot in undergrad. So I kind of wish in my first semester of law school that I reached out to the professors more and asked more questions about the best ways to answer these kind of questions, because the professors do expect a certain way for the questions to be, for you to answer the questions. So it's something you kind of pick up after a year or so, at least for me, but I definitely think it's a good idea when the profs say, do you want, or come to my office hours and we can chat about how best to pose your answers. I would take them up on it, because it's super useful to just have a better understanding of what the professors are expecting, because it is a lot different than undergrad, at least for me.
So my undergrad was in political science, and I'm not gonna lie, like it was a joke. It was very easy in comparison to science. People used to say that a lot at U Ottawa. So when you get into law school, the stakes are so much higher. Everybody's so much more competitive, and it's hard to stay afloat because of the pressures. Everybody's comparing themselves. It's very unhealthy, actually. I'm not gonna lie. It's very unhealthy to be in. But I think that's also one thing that you folks should, prepare for. Really get ready to be, forced to stick to your schedule, to do all your readings, to be called on in class, right? Like it's a whole different game, especially like that's from my own personal experience. I went from undergrad not doing anything seriously to having to be on like my toes every day in class. And it's not to scare you folks, but it's just the reality of how the environment is in law school right now. So that's all I'd say, like get in the habit of being disciplined and of doing your readings and of like trying to do your best in everything. And that's, looking back in first year, that's really how I wish I had approached it.
I have a contrast to that. I think it does. Yes, you have to get used to like the competition. It also depends on the school that you go to as well. Because so I'm at Windsor and I'm still in the transition. I just finished my first semester, and I don't like Windsor doesn't do the cold call thing, but it's still competition within the people in your cohort. Like, oh, are you above the curve? Are you below? Like you're trying to see where you are in your class and stuff. But one thing that I would say that I'm still learning how to transition is procrastination. That is still affecting me. But I think one thing that I'm learning is that when it comes to, okay, whatever you're doing now, whatever your program is now, you might, read the notes before class, go to class, and then never look at it again. What I recognize with law school, what's helped me is reading the content before class, comparing my notes like during class with the teacher's notes, and then immediately after class, going through all those notes again and revising, because that's what it really is with a lot of courses. You're doing a lot of revision. You're trying to remember case law. You're trying to remember the legal significance of certain cases or whatever it is. But you're really it's that repetition that you have to get used to. And in order to do that, you just have to keep teaching yourself. So yeah.
Thank you. We're back to LSATs. We got another question from the online team. So as you can see, LSAT is definitely a space for a bit of worry and concern for this process. But the question that we received is about overstudying. Do you guys feel like there's ever a point where you felt that you were just overstudying? Like, how did you manage that, Sabir?
Yeah, sometimes it might feel like you're overstudying because you might hit like a plateau in your scores where your score is not getting any better, your time's not really getting any better. So you think like, oh, like this is the max I can hit. Like my brain reached its capacity, I'm good. In those circumstances, what I found useful is to take like a couple days off, relax, do whatever I enjoy doing, and then looking back at the tests and seeing what I got wrong and understanding like how I can improve. But just in terms of like overstudying, your body's gonna tell you sometimes when you're like when it's reached its capacity, and that's when I think like you should stop, because it's a test at the end of the day. It's not worth your mental or physical health taking a toll. It is anxiety inducing for some people. It was for me. So it's just recognizing the signals that your body's giving you and really like taking stride with those and understanding like that this isn't ultimately worth your mental health or your physical health deteriorating.
Thank you very much. Now we're at 5 more minutes with the student panel. I wanted to just check in with the room. Did any of you guys have any questions that you would like to pose? Yes, we have one here and one there. It'll be next. So if you want to go first. Microphone for you. Yes.
I'm a first year, and I have two questions. I don't know if there's time, but my first question is, what would you say are the benefits of studying economics as an undergrad for law? Because I was strongly advised by my cousin to go into that for law. I think I was kind of interested in it, but I'm not sure like what I'd like to continue doing. But I'm willing to stay in it if I know that it's like gonna help me for law. So
In terms of like economics as a major, like one great thing about law school is that you can major in basically anything as long as like you got like a high GPA and then your LSAT and your personal statement and everything are on point. So I think that in terms of economics, I guess it could help if you want to do corporate law, just to have like maybe some background in business experience. But I mean, when you're deciding your major, I think you should decide based on your interests and like what you think you can excel in. Like you should take the major that you know you'll do very, very well in, so that your GPA is high for your law school application.
I was an arts major, but I do have friends who are now in law school who did econ, and one thing I asked them, like, because I'm always like, what, how does that transition make sense? They say like it helps if you do econ, and I don't know, for some reason the LSAT becomes less challenging for you because of how you were taught before, like in your classes. So I think you should still stick with it if it's something that you like.
Okay, thank you. And my second question was, so a lot of people that I've spoken to have told me that I can't go into law because I have a strong moral compass. But then I heard one of you talk about like how one of the reasons why you wanted to pursue law is because you have a passion for social justice. Could you guys just expand a little bit more about like what interests you could have if you want to be a lawyer?
So you can definitely go to law school if you have a strong moral compass. I'm not sure where that came from, but I know there's tons of like social justice clinics. Some schools have more clinics and stuff available than others. Just sometimes some of the schools are kind of divvied up based on like Western and Toronto are very corporate, but we still have all these social justice and social justice clinics and whatnot. And there's a lot of extracurriculars you can do in that space. I definitely don't think, I think that'll be a benefit to you. I think you'll definitely feel fulfilled with the things that you can do with your legal degree.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I'd argue that that's a reason you should go into law. There's like this stereotype that lawyers are sleazy and like they're not good people, and you're gonna meet some that aren't good people, but that's just everybody. That's every career path. There's people that are good people, people that aren't. But you want people with the strong moral compasses in those positions making those decisions, because ultimately, like, there's at least some form of conscience there where they're going to try to not make people's lives horrible. So I think your moral compass is definitely a reason why you should pursue the law.
Thank you. And we have time for one more question.
All right. Actually, you could take this. I have enough bass on my voice. So I have, yes. So,
It's for the, it's,
you can hear me, right?
The video.
You're on Zoom?
yes, there's people online.
All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Dwayne. I'm in my 4th year. I'm majoring in criminology. I'm minoring in sociology and political science. And basically, I have a 2-part question, right? The first question I have is, when it comes to your CGPA, does that really matter, or do law schools tend to look at maybe like say the last 2 to 3 years of your GPA, or do they look at your overall CGPA, or how does this whole thing work?
I'd say that they look at your overall GPA, but the last 2 years of your undergrad are very important, right? So like in the last 2 years, that's the time that you could take to work or to work on your GPA specifically. So it's not too late if you think that your last or your first 2 years aren't that good. I would really recommend to just try your best in your last year.
They also, I think, just to add to that, it's good to show progress. Schools look at the progress, and I can say that for myself. First year, yeah. First year my grades were like some of my grades were low, and I even ended up failing one of my courses. And after first year, I was like, okay, well, something gotta shake, like something gotta give. I have to, change this. And because I was able to show progress within my next consecutive years, like I'm here. So yeah, they definitely look for progress. So don't think like, oh, if you did like poorly in your first year, like you're doomed, because that's not the case.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like I used to come to events like this and I used to sit there and think everybody on the panel was like this perfect candidate and got in, and like my situation wouldn't work. But I'll be honest with you guys, I bombed my first 2 years of undergrad. I did horrible, ended up switching my program and doing really well, and I got into law school. So we could talk about that later if you guys want, but you don't necessarily have to have the perfect CGPA.
Just one more thing to add on to that. A lot of schools calculate your GPA differently. So some of them do best 2 years, some of them do best 3 years, some of them look at all the years. Some of them want to see progress over the years. So most universities should have that on their application kind of portal for students. It should say
And sorry, just one thing, I did fail a class in undergrad, so like if that's something that you folks are considering, it's all about progress and how you can explain it in your personal statement, so.
As I said, transparency, it's so important as people who are listening and trying to make this decision. So thank you for sharing that component. Now, I want to take the moment just to thank you. I know we had, oh, you had a second question. I am so sorry.
Okay, I just have one more quick question. If I was considering studying international law, like say if I wanted to become a United Nations lawyer, is there a path that I can take in law school towards that? Or like, basically what I'm asking is, do you study different types of law in your initial years in law school, and then you branch off into a specific field of law, or how does it work?
Just to speak from the Osgood perspective, I know that basically every single law school in your first year, you have to take the same classes like criminal law, tort, contract. And then you're starting in your second year, you can take the classes that you want to take. I know at Osgood, we have an international law intensive clinic, which allows students to sometimes travel abroad. I know one classmate is currently in Geneva right now working for the UN as an intern. I know another classmate is also doing like work with another sort of international company. So Osgood has like quite a lot of opportunities for those who are interested in sort of like international law. I'd also say like just in terms of like the class content that's offered in your upper years, there'll probably be like international law focused classes. And beyond that is just like networking at like sort of international law events and international law clubs that could sort of gear you towards like a career in international law. I think that there are international law heavy firms in Ottawa as well.
And one thing I would say for you to consider, there are combined programs. So U Ottawa has NIPSIA and law. So it's a 4-year program. You get your Masters of International Affairs and your JD. And there's also the same thing at U of T and the Monk School of Global Affairs. So that's also an option that you could look into if you want to pursue that.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate all the advice and guidance that you've given here this afternoon. Now, I am going to allow us to take a break so that you guys could, one, have a chance to connect. We didn't get to a particular question. There was a question from someone that inquired about if they did science in their undergrad, how do they go about pursuing and transitioning for law? I'm just going to say whoever it is, if you want to connect with Mariah, she might be the best person to speak to about that. And please take advantage during the break to connect with the panelists, and we will be transitioning over to our professional panel. So 15 minutes, I still want to honor that time. So if we could all be back in our seats for 7:05, and we will get started again. Okay? Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you. So I want to welcome everybody back, and thanks for those who are online for being so patient with us. I know we're starting 3 minutes behind the schedule that we indicated, but I think we've done pretty well overall. So as we begin the second part of the evening, I want to take a moment just to start off with our introductions to our professional lawyer panel as well. So for the second panelist, I'm going to be introducing Rebecca Scantlebury, Shion Oluwalafe. Thank you. Temi Teo, Terrell, and Yemisi. So if you guys could take a moment and give them a warm welcome for joining us here today. Now I'm going to start with a brief review of each of them so you could get more familiar with them. So we have Rebecca, who is a principal lawyer of Scantlebury Law and practices in the area of employment, human rights, and real estate law. Prior to establishing Scantlebury Law, Rebecca gained experience as a reputable Bay Street law firm where she provided legal services for Fortune 500 companies and a boutique employment and human rights firm. Take a moment just to welcome her. Shion is a dedicated legal practitioner skilled in real estate, corporate law, and litigation. Since his call to the bar in 2020, Shion has represented clients in various levels of court, including the Court of Appeal, Superior Court, and the Federal Court. Please welcome him and give him a warm welcome. Thank you. Timothée is a lawyer licensed to practice law in the province in Ontario. She currently works as a senior associate at Goose Law Immigration. In her practice, she has had the opportunity to lead a team of both corporate and individual clients. She has a wealth of experience in supporting business clients with immigration options that allow them to bring their employees to Canada. She also has extensive experience with helping individuals and families with their Canadian immigration application. Please give her a warm welcome. Terrell is a legal counsel at Equifax Canada, where he practices in the area of privacy law, regulatory compliance, employment law, mergers and acquisition, complex partnerships, and general commercial law. Please welcome Terrell. And the last panelist for me to introduce is Yemisi. Yemisi is an associate at Borden Lander Geneva LLP, corporate and practice as a corporate and capital markets group with a practice focus on corporate finance, private equity, and mergers and acquisition. Her hybrid practice encompasses advice-based solicitor work on a wide variety of corporate and security law matters, public and private company transactions, and corporate governance issues. So with no further ado, I just want to give the whole group a warm welcome one more time. Now I'm going to jump into the questions that we have here for you today. So now just taking a moment to reflect on your career story. When exploring your future career options, what made you choose law? And how did you decide on the area of law that you decided to pursue?
Okay, maybe I'll go first. Let's just see. Do I take this out? Okay. I made notes. Sorry. I usually like to make notes when I'm doing this. Okay. So what made me choose law? And I would say, I think growing up, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, to be honest. My dad was a lawyer, so I did everything possible to do the opposite of what he was doing. So like, every time I would want to do like something different than what he was doing. But I think at some point when I was a teenager, I started going to his office after work and I was like, you know what, it's not so bad. It really isn't so bad. So I think at that point I had like that influence around me, but although I still rejected it, I was like, nope, I'm not doing law. It's not gonna work out for me. I don't wanna work with him. It's just not possible. Like, I don't see us working together. It's going to be a lot of friction. But anyways, I would say like why I ended up choosing law was, as much as I like ran away from it, I did find that like there were just certain things that I did enjoy about law. Like if you're into like social justice, advocacy, if you like research, arguing, you just find like you generally tend to want to like, you know, do these things. So I think for me, I was just like, you know what, I'll take the law school exams. I wasn't sure I was gonna pass, but I was like, I'll just do it. So like, you know, let's see where it gets me. And if I didn't do that, I already had a backup option. So I wasn't really too worried because I was like, if I don't pass the exam, I know I'm gonna go do something else. So I'm fine either ways. And luckily for me, I got in. I don't know how, but yes, somehow I passed. So I think people choose law for like different reasons. So it depends on what you're after and why you like, you know, want to do what you want to do. So for me, I think it was just the fact that I had somebody who I'd seen in the profession, who I had that mentorship from like growing up in the house and it was there. And I also feel like if you feel like it depends on what you want to do. So I just had that whole advocacy, social interest, justice, and like things that were just like interesting to me. And that's one of the things that made me pursue law. I would say that.
Thank you. I want to know what that backup plan was personally, but we'll figure that out after.
Nice. Thank you for everyone for being here, and thank you for the invite. My name is Sheon Ololafe, and I run my own law practice. And what got me into becoming a lawyer is I've always wanted to become a lawyer. I remember for the longest time, even from when I was a child, my dad would tell me that I'd have the personality of a lawyer. He'd always remind me that my grandfather would actually say that one day I could see him being a lawyer. So I kind of feel like my grandfather spoke it into existence. And I just, going through high school, I've always been interested in social justice and human rights. And I remember, working at different places in high school and noticing, employment rights being infringed. Or I'd always outspoken about that. And so everyone would always tell me like, yeah, Sheon, you should go to law school, be a lawyer. And here I am, and I love it every day. I love it every day.
I love
Thank
it
you.
when it's spoken into life.
Hi everyone. So my name is Temitayo. And similar to Sheon's reason, I think from very young, my parents, spoke that into me. I come from a family of lawyers, like literally everybody is a lawyer. But I think the main thing is my parents are also Nigerian, and so I was going to be some kind of professional, either a lawyer, a doctor, architect, engineer, one of those four. And I couldn't do any of the other three. Once I got into high school, I gravitated towards the arts, none of the sciences. So that law path was kind of set from an early point. But one other thing is that I've always not liked situations that are unfair. Like growing up, I would always say to my dad, that's not fair. And he would say, but why? And so from a very young age, I was always arguing why things that are not fair should not be allowed to happen. And so all of those things combining, getting into undergrad, finishing undergrad, and looking at what my options were with an undergraduate degree. And I was like, none of these look fun. Let's go to law school. And so went to law school, and here we are. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca. I think we all answered the first part of the question really well, so I'm going to spend more time on the second part of the question. So what made me choose law? Same reasons as them. My parents, my family, everyone was like, oh, this girl is mouthy. She would be a lawyer. And so I think just having that in my head, I came to UTM. Is anyone here from UTM? Woo, UTM. And so I started off in management, business, and I had to take Econ 100. Anyone took Econ 100? That is hard. I went to Econ Man. I tried to get tutors. I had to ask them for my money back because I said, I can't do it. I switched. I switched to socio-legal studies and French linguistics. At that point, I didn't care what I took. I just wanted to get an undergraduate degree so that I can get into law school. So it worked. And how did I decide my area of practice? So I currently practice in employment and real estate law. I have my own practice. And how did I get into those two areas of law? How do I make this a short story? Because I got into them at two different times. And so where you article, it's probably going to be your practice area. Not 100%, but for the most part, finding an articling position isn't exactly the easiest thing, especially if you're an internationally trained lawyer, which I was. Finding an articling position actually for me wasn't difficult, but I have, heard other people say it's hard. And so because I had it in my head that it was so hard to find an articling position, as soon as I got someone who said yes, I went for that. And that was employment law. I got in through real estate through mentors, actually. I said I had an interest in real estate, and because I had my own practice, I wasn't busy enough for employment law to be the bulk of my practice. And so someone introduced me to a real estate lawyer. Transactional law is very much transactions. It's faster money. And so real estate was paying the bills. Whereas litigation is more so, employment law litigation is more so, it takes years, it takes some time for you to actually get some money. So, I mean, I don't, though I said I was gonna say this quick, didn't I? No, it's a long story. Because I didn't, you know what, let me stop there. That's it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyrell. And the reason why I chose law school, I was in grade 10 and I was sitting next to Shane Thomas Campbell, and we're choosing courses for grade 11. And I wasn't even going to choose law, but he said he wanted to choose law to learn more about his rights. When we were in high school, we'd often get stopped by the police, and I thought, hey, great idea. I'll take it as well. And then when I was in grade 11, I absolutely loved it. I loved reading decisions written by the Supreme Court of Canada. And for the first time in high school, I was engaged in school without having to force it. I would go home and I'd just read up on the law for hours. And so I loved it. And that's when I ultimately decided that I'd probably pursue law school. In grade 12, I studied political science. I loved that as well. But ultimately, I chose to go to law school and to become a lawyer because in applying for jobs all throughout university, I found that I wasn't having much luck. And I was writing resumes for other people. They were getting jobs and I wasn't getting jobs. So I was like, you know, what is this about? So ultimately I figured, hey, you know what? If I become a lawyer, I'd always have the option to start my own law firm. So nobody could deny me a job opportunity because I'd just go out and practice on my own. And ultimately I fell into commercial law. It's not something I wanted to do. I wanted to be a constitutional lawyer, but I figured, I don't really have money for that. I don't know how much money constitutional lawyers are making, but you know, again, I didn't know any lawyers, so I figured that'd probably be a difficult area to break into. Also, I wasn't a big fan of my first year constitutional law professor. He made it miserable, which is unfortunate. And in law school, I really loved employment law. I really wanted to practice employment law, but just as Rebecca says, ultimately, where you article sort of determines the practice area that you may fall into. And employment law is a part of my practice, but you know, commercial transactions is a bigger part of it, and I've just stuck with it. And the reason why I've stuck with it till this point is because every day I'm learning something new, which is awesome.
Thank you. You guys left us with a few cliffhangers, like what's next? So I will try and come back as we go through the questions. Now our next question is, what are some of the hard and soft skills that you thought were essential to ensure your success thus far in your career?
I can go first. So as far as hard skills, I think you'll learn the hard skills on the job. Like, I mean, these law students could probably speak to it better than I can. But when I was I went to Osgood, I hadn't seen a contract ever. I mean, you talk about, you know, theories and you talk about, you know, different contractual concepts, but I've never seen a contract. I've never had to draft a contract. So depending on the area of law that you go into, you'll learn those hard skills on the job. I wouldn't be too concerned about those skills. As far as soft skills, you need a strong work ethic. I mean, being a lawyer is a lot of work, but I think an underrated skill is that it's important to be personable. I mean, having a skill where people like you, where people like working with you is very important to success. Sometimes I look at some of my peers at work and it's just like, man, you guys get in your own way for no reason. Just be likable, treat people with respect, right? And don't, you know, come off with this air of arrogance that, hey, I'm a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, you know, I know more than you, I'm smarter than you. So it's important to be humbling and be personable. People want to work with you and you'll be successful.
To add to that, I would say I agree that you learn most of it on the job, but I think one skill that's very important is knowing how to find the answers. I would say 80-90% of my job is somebody coming to me asking me a question and me going to look for the answer. I don't have all the answers in my head. There's no way you're going to have all the answers in your head. The law is vast, and so being able to, you know, take your time, research, find answers, I think that's definitely a skill that you would need. And then for soft skills, I would say empathy. So I work in immigration law, and a lot of my work is, you know, dealing one-on-one with people and their lives and their journeys in Canada and understanding like their struggles. And so being able to empathize with my clients, I would say is a very important skill to have.
So I agree with both of them. The only thing that I would add to that is everyone has different personalities, right? Some people are introverted, some people are extroverted. And I would say don't ever feel like you need to be extroverted to be a good lawyer, or don't feel like you need to be introverted. I'm not someone who wants to sit at my desk all day and just be on. I think I actually do sit at my desk, but I don't want to do that. But the point of what I'm trying to say is I articled with someone who was completely different than me. He was very much in his books. He did not want to talk. And he knew the law like that, like just you say anything, he knew it. He's like, oh, but what about this section? And I felt a little bit intimidated. But my articling principal actually liked me more. I shouldn't, well, maybe don't Google where I articled, okay? But he liked me, and he said he hired us both for different reasons. I would very much, when he would come up, he's been a lawyer for like, over 10 years, I would more ask questions or challenge him, or I wasn't afraid to say my perspective, which made him think. I didn't get nervous talking to clients. I can walk in a room and I would just, make a joke, or I was able to connect with someone. So go on your skill set. There are some people who are not introverted, and that's fine. There's areas of law that you will excel. And then, if you are perhaps more of an extrovert, you'll be considered, like a rainmaker. You're good at bringing in business into the law firm. And so no matter your personality, whatever skill set you have, you're good the way you are, and just work on strengthening those skills.
Yes, for sure. I just want to extend on that. You made a really good point that you don't have to be an introvert or an extrovert to be successful as a lawyer. But what I did notice, which launching my own business, is being able to manage workload, not to overburden yourself, and knowing when to say no to certain files. So having that, that type of discretion of managing workload, and having emotional intelligence is super important. A recent file that I'm doing right now is it's a corporate matter where I have 11 shareholders who are aggrieved, and they're pretty upset about the fact that the rest of the other shareholders have pushed them out of the corporation. So of course I have to assure these shareholders, these clients, all 11 of them, that I'm confident that we're able to come to some type of remedy, and just trying to manage all their emotions, and making sure that my office is giving them the confidence that we'd be able to resolve this in an expeditious manner that's not too expensive. So of course they're thinking about the cost. They're thinking about whether there could be potential conflict of interest with any of the other shareholders. So making sure that I explain it to them clearly, and of course managing that aspect to the file requires soft skills. Hard skills is of course knowing the material, voraciously reading and understanding the content before, of course, meeting the clients. So yeah.
Thank you. And if you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add something to that. And I do agree with everybody here. They've all said really valuable things. I'm more in the corporate world, and I do agree that hard skills can be taught or learned, to be honest. Like these things, you pick them up as you go. I don't think anybody out there in the world expects that as a student you knew it all. That's one of the things they teach as an articling student. When you're coming as a summer student, you just don't know it all. So there's that leverage that they know, like, okay, these people are you're just out of school, you're learning. So in terms of hard skills, those things can be taught. And for soft skills, I would say what everybody else has, I'm just going to retweet the same thing, is time management skills. You want to make sure you're saving time, you're being efficient. And I do agree, people want to work with people that they like. You don't want to work with somebody you don't like. So, just be yourself. And if you're an introvert, an extrovert, everybody's different, everybody's unique. Each person brings their own individuality to a firm. That's why there's all this diverse people in the firm. So I would say soft skills, just be yourself, be likable. Like, I mean, that's just it. People want to be able to come into your office and be like, oh, hey, hi, Deborah, like, what's happening? Can we, quickly do this? And you should also want to be able to like solve problems. If you have problem solving skills, or like you can think quick and on your feet, you solved like 5 minutes of a problem that you could have spent 20 minutes doing. And people want to be efficient. I guess maybe in my space, they find that like really helpful.
Thank you very much for that, and thanks for sharing and reaffirming that it's about the soft skills, because very often that's what's nerve-wracking when you're pursuing a profession. You think that you have to come so prepared, but just be nice and trust that whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you're going to be okay along this pathway. Now, money. We know, even if it doesn't make the world fully go round, we know we definitely need it for this journey that when you're pursuing law. So what are some of the financial difficulties that you would like to share that you've encountered? Do you have any recommendation to help lessen the pressure for those that may be pursuing that path in the future? So anyone who wants to start and share?
As far as the tips, I think the law students, they had way better tips than I could present here, and I wish I knew what they had known at the time, but I almost didn't even pursue law school because I thought, man, I can't afford this. And in terms of just, even applying to law schools, I limited the number of schools I'd apply to simply because I didn't have the money to do it. Preparing for the bar exam, I had enough money to buy a $60 textbook and, some practice exams, and I self-studied. I didn't have any money to do a practice course. But as far as tips, perhaps, the basics: pay your bills on time, build your credit, don't overextend yourself, budget aggressively. And I know that at the time when I was applying to law school, Scotiabank was targeting students who are going to law school, and you didn't need a cosigner. So again, if you have decent credit, you'll make it happen. And the money that they'll give you is going to be enough to make it through law school. By the time you get out on the other end, you're going to be looking at it and wondering how you're going to pay it, but you will. I paid mine off last year, fortunately.
Woo! Come on, get it up. Is there anything anyone else would like to add for recommendations?
Yeah, just to extend on that, definitely budgeting is super important. I found that going through law school, I took out an OSAP to go to law school in England, and my folks were super helpful with assisting. And by the time I was ready to launch my own practice, I just looked for different financing. The big banks now have loans, low interest loans, specifically for Black entrepreneurs. There's the Black Opportunity Fund that's available. There's the Futurepreneur, which is an organization that's run through BDC. So I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with BDC, which is kind of a quasi public private company that helps entrepreneurs. So these are all financial institutions that I had to tap into in order to start my own business, and it's worked out well. It was a risk that I took, but given the economic situation over the past couple of years after COVID, looking for some low interest loan to launch your business, grants to launch your business is super important. So I would highly, highly recommend that.
I'm just going to add to that. One of the things, I think somebody on the student panel had already talked about this, which is the Avenue program. So law is expensive. I'm not talking about law school now or bar exam. The law generally is expensive. So it's you have law school, then you do your undergrad, you go to law school, you finish, you do bar prep. There's bar prep is expensive. So it's everything is expensive. It costs a lot of money. So if you can take advantage of the Avenue program, they're always looking for people. They're always looking for new talent. They're most firms, I think on Bay Street all participate in the Avenue program. So if you can attend, you can get a scholarship. You can also get OSAP. That helps as well. But it is expensive. And I think the key is budgeting, because after law school, you don't want to come out of law school oh my God, I've racked up a debt. And you're you'll pay it off eventually, but it does get expensive. So whatever you can do to minimize your debt at the end of like law school and bar exams and everything, just, I mean, take advantage of it. There's no, you just take advantage of it and then you go from there.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have a question from online, and it's with regards to those of you who could share about opening your own practice. So, Shion, you kind of touched on it when you spoke about the financing aspect, but do you want to expand on what your pathway and how that was?
For sure. So when I got called to the bar in 2020, right out the gate, I decided I wanted to open up my own law practice. Again, it is a bit of a risk for those who, haven't worked as an associate for a few years. And, I did, get some, naysayers telling me like, give it a few years before you launch your practice. But I was confident that, I'd build up the networks prior to getting called to the bar. I was a management consultant. So I, worked with different stakeholders. My brother, who he is is a land developer, and my dad has a real estate brokerage, and so we have agents that work with us, and again that kind of boosted my confidence to launching my own business, launching my own law practice. But I found after I started practicing, there wasn't as much referrals coming from the brokerages and the networks that I thought would be coming, and I Google helped, Google Ads helped. I found a lot of potential clients that I started receiving were just from ads, from joining Facebook groups, and so that was it. Just out there, just grinding, letting my name out, and even the over the course of my practice, the paralegals that work with me, they're from an Asian background. They're both Chinese, and they both speak Mandarin and Cantonese. And so I was able to tap into that demographic. And if I'm dealing with clients that there's any language barriers, I'd be able to have a translator, someone to help me with translating. So that's super helpful. And launching your own practice, it's so different. I mean, you have to have your own trust account that you have to manage. You have to have your own insurance. That you have to make sure that you're paying on time, and you don't want to be offside with the Law Society. It's daunting at first, but then once you get the hang of it, and you kind of go through the motions of the ups and downs, it's so satisfying and so rewarding. So I wouldn't change it for anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so my experience was a little bit different than yours. So what was the question? Let me read it again, sorry. How did you open your own practice? Oh my gosh, okay. Oh, it's been a lot. But I would say that I articled during COVID. And okay, so actually let me start from the beginning. I'm gonna try and say this again in a short way. After law school, I got a job at a firm, Bay Street. I thought, oh my God, this is the life. Like usually you can't get jobs if you, just graduated law school, and I studied abroad. I studied law in England. And so getting a job right away, I pushed back the NCAs, I pushed back the bar, because I was like, I'm making money, I'm just happy. But I'll sort all that out later. I realized that I did not like corporate life. I realized that, and no shade to anyone who does corporate, okay? It just wasn't for me, simply because I felt like it was very high volume. I was doing a lot of work. There's so many perks. Like if you can get into, everyone needs to do corporate. There's so many perks, Uber rides, the food, like you're not spending any of your money. But I felt like the work wasn't it for me. I felt like I wasn't learning. And so after about 2.5 years, I went to work at a small firm, literally like 3 lawyers. And when you work at a small firm, no perks, no Uber rides, no lunch. I don't even think he's ever taken me out to lunch like once, that lawyer, the main lawyer. No phone, no computer. You have to bring everything yourself. You are your own IT person. You're your own, well, we had a clerk, but the clerk is busy. You become your own clerk. And so that is how I really learned the skills on how to start up my own firm. Now, my articling principal, being a wonderful Black man, was very much, had that entrepreneurial spirit, and he really wanted to encourage his, the associates under him to also have that. And so he was, okay, go get your clients, You want to make money, you got to get your own clients. And once you brought the client in, you would get a percentage. And so after doing it for a while, I would see like, hold on a minute. So you mean I just did all this work and you got the money for it? So that's when I said, I can do this myself. I'm already doing it. No thought process into it, no looking into loans and business plans. I just started telling people I have my own practice, and I got clients, and it just kept happening that way. When work got a lot, then I would go to another lawyer, or I would go to another clerk, someone in my building, be like, do you want to make some money? You want to draft this for me? They already knew how to do the work, and I would pay them, and then that's just how I started to go on. So no research, do not recommend what I did, but as I said before, I used my strengths to my advantage. Another thing that I did was, if you can't tell, I am like a social butterfly networking queen. And so I volunteered for an organization called the Black Female Lawyers Network. In there, I was surrounded by phenomenal Black female lawyers that have been practicing for ranging 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Mediators, judges. I was just surrounded by a whole bunch of legal professionals who were killing it in their game. And I'm now the vice president of the organization. So everyone who's a Black female in here and who wants to be a lawyer should definitely join. But in joining that organization, I got a lot of referrals. I was introduced to a lot of other lawyers who surprisingly didn't know, a lawyer who did employment law, or who did, I feel like a lot of people do real estate, but not a lot do employment law. And so, it just kind of happens like that. It grows until you're like, wow, like I'm actually doing this. So that's how I got started.
I don't know about you guys, but I heard the song, I'm a hustler. Like that's all that kept rolling through my head while you guys were saying that. So I'm gonna change it up a little bit just out of the sake of time, and I want to ensure that we get a lot of the key things. So if we could go through, because I do have a few questions from online, and I do want to reach out to the room as well for their questions. So if you could share one piece of advice, just one piece of advice that you would give a student trying to build their career, legal career, what would it be? So if you want to lead us out.
Okay, I would say my one piece of advice would be, I'm torn between two. I don't know, which one should I say?
Take two.
Take two? Okay, take two. So I think the first thing would be to believe in yourself. And when I say believe in yourself, like growing up, I was more of an introvert and I struggled. I was like, how do I make it out in the legal world? Like these people, like, they want to talk, you want to like meet people. I was always like scared about doing that. So I would say the first thing is just believe in yourself. And then the second thing I would say is don't worry so much. Just get good grades, focus on what you need to do. I mean, just do what you need to do, but don't worry too much about like what's ahead or like what's in the future, because like there are like lots of firms out there, there are different practices out there. You will find a place that is just for you. That's just what I will say.
Thank you.
I would say the one piece of advice is resilience, to be resilient, because there will be the late nights studying, your bar exams, or just having to get up super early for articling and doing 10 hours when you're working for nothing. I remember. So just resilience, having resilience, and just having a clear goal and vision, and knowing the reason why you want to do this. It's if you're in undergrad and you think it's just about making money, don't really think that being a lawyer is the best thing you want to be, even though it's rewarding financially. But I think there should be like a greater goal, a greater cause, as opposed to just money. So yes.
One piece of advice from me, I would say, is don't close yourself off to any opportunities, or don't close yourself off to anything. Don't be necessarily like one track minded. So I've spoken to a few of you in the room here who said, I'm interested in this kind of law, which is great, to have an idea of what you're interested in, but go into law school open to any and everything. So I went into law school and I was interested in human rights law. I was also interested in IP law, family law, immigration, and I landed where I did, and I'm happy with where I ended up. And that's only because I left myself open to all of the different opportunities that came my way. So one piece of advice would be just stay open, have a goal, but stay open to whatever else might present itself to you.
I have two. Okay, so the first one is you rise by lifting others. So remember, network not only with us and the law students, network with each other. Because when you get out there, I think they say there's only 3% or 3.7% of lawyers are Black. So other races are connecting, you gotta connect. Put your ego to the side, be friends, even maybe not be friends, but connect with each other, and you won't be surprised when someone messages you 5 years, 10 years down the road and they're like, oh, hey, I remember you from that event. And then you now have a friend in your legal journey. You need it, especially when you're doing the bar exam, you need it. So that's my first thing. You rise by lifting others, help other people, and it will come back around to you, okay? The second thing is pay attention to contract law and tort law. Those, I just wanted to get these courses done, but in practice, I'm like, damn, I should have really paid attention, because those two areas of law, I feel like they will come up no matter what area of law you practice. You will always have to look at a contract. And for tort law, torts are like all over the place. So I know you're probably like, what is she talking about? Just trust me. Pay attention to those two areas of law if you want a good legal career.
I would say pursue your interests. I know that the one student had mentioned that she's taking economics and she may not like it. If you don't like economics, take something else. Especially because, going to law school, you could study whatever you want. You could be, you could study music and go to law school. And then when you're in law school, you're gonna, acquire a bunch of transferable skills. Like I draft multi-million-dollar contracts and negotiate them. I've never taken a business course in my life. You know what I mean? So pursue your interests, and I think you'll land in a good place.
Thank you guys for that. I saw the student panel shaking their heads when they heard about contracts and torts, so I hope you paid attention. So my next question is going to be in terms of careers. It's not a linear process, and because we do have a few questions, I'm just going to ask the panelists for one person to take the questions, just so we could kind of cover the different topics that we have available. So we know careers isn't linear. And if you were to pivot, what other career would you pursue with your legal education?
Sorry, I can go. So what other careers I think the beautiful thing about law is you can do anything. When you get that training, when you get that base foundation, you can literally do anything. So right now I'm a corporate transactional lawyer. I do a lot of deals. I'm on transaction, cross-border transactions. There's a lot of talking to people in Asia or people in the Middle East. I'm doing different types of things, but it's mostly transactional work. Now, if I did choose to pivot from here, you can basically do anything, because you already have that background in law. You've touched on a couple of things that have to do with employment, because when companies are buying each other, you're going to have to look at employment, you're going to have to look at tax, you're going to have to look at real estate. There's a whole lot that goes into even just one corporation buying a subsidiary or whatever it is. So if I did choose to like pivot, there's like different things you can do. You can be a consultant, you can go into government policy, you can go into financial advisory. There's like different like tiers. And again, it depends on what you have an interest in. Excuse me. If you're somebody who likes employment and labor law, you can become an HR specialist. Like I know people who are lawyers who have done employment law, and then they're like, now they're like, you know, HR like people, they work in like HR departments of like different companies. So you could do that. You can be like a researcher, you can be a governance advisor, you can be a compliance officer, a regulatory specialist. There's options. There's like a whole lot of options that you can do. So if I did choose today to leave, I could go in-house, become an in-house counsel. I could become a legal consultant. It all depends on like the options or like what I choose to do at that time. So I guess I would say, yeah, there's like a lot of options as long as you like, it doesn't limit you. Law doesn't limit you. It's expensive to get there, but when you're there, I feel like it does open like a lot of opportunities for you. So you can just think of what you want to do and just take it from there.
Thank you very much for that. Now I have a question from online. So we've heard about the Avenue program, but they're curious to know, would a firm typically take on a fourth year or newly graduate student, like if they were not in law school? So fourth year undergrad student or newly graduate student?
Well, I personally, I haven't taken on any undergraduate students. They're just been either in law school or you know, going through the paralegal program. But it's not something that I wouldn't do. It's just a matter of first of all, you know, seeing their CV and their resume, and you know, seeing if they're a right fit, if they do have the potential once they do get into law school, and you know, once I see the CV, if I feel that you know, we should conduct an interview, see how the interview goes. You know, you find a lot of people who are in undergrad, they do have that ambition, and you know, they wouldn't be as you know, as person, you know, they wouldn't be combative in terms of their personality, or have ego. So they're willing to learn. Yeah, it's something that I would definitely consider. I currently actually have a student that helps me do research before you know, going to litigation. He's out in the UK right now, so it's his first year, and you know, he's good at what he does, and you know, once he's done, he could potentially article with me. So yeah. So
essentially, opportunities are there.
The opportunities are there. Yes, it's just you know, taking that jump, and you know, sending out resumes, sending messages on LinkedIn, and yeah, they're there.
Grinding. So before I go to the other questions that we have, I wanted to give the room an opportunity in case you guys had any questions here. Is there any questions for those in the room? So they're gonna bring the mic to you. So you, and then you next. Okay. So, right.
Hi, so my name is Deborah, and my question for all of you is, how did you decide whether you wanted to lean towards the more transaction side of law or go into like litigation? Like, how did you make that decision, and at what point did you really decide?
I can start that. So when I started my law practice, I wasn't doing litigation. I just started off with just, you know, real estate transactions. So if you're looking to purchase a home, sell a home, do a refinance. So I was doing primarily that. And what made me decide to do that, again, my background was in real estate. My dad's a broker, my brother's a developer. My sister, who's here, she's also an agent. So I was familiar with real estate. I was a real estate investor before getting called to the bar. So by the time I launched my practice, I'm like, you know, this is something that I've seen before. Let's just do it. Prior to getting into litigation, so that's a totally different beast. It does require a certain special skills to do litigation and to deal with like hostile lawyers that are on the opposition, managing clients. Having the right team is super crucial. Like I can't I can't overstate the importance of having the right team when it comes to litigation is really important. So yeah.
To add on to that, I think for me personally, I knew I didn't have those skills for litigation, and so I was like, I'm going to avoid this. And I think I made that decision at some point in law school. You know, when you read case law, like you read the cases and you see how long it takes for a decision to be made. I'm also not a very patient person. And so I don't want to have a file that I'm carrying for 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 15 years. I want to submit something and have a decision in a couple of weeks or months maximum, which you find in immigration. And so that was my deciding factor. I don't have the skills for litigation and I don't have the patience for litigation. So I'm not going to do litigation.
I will say that I'm introverted, so for me, it's just like I prefer to do solicitor work, and that's what I try to pursue. But with litigation, though, I love the idea of doing a lot of research for a case. I just don't necessarily want to be the person who presents the case. But I would only do litigation if it was employment law. Anything else, not for me.
Thank you very much. Now we have another question right there. So we're at 7:55, and out of my desire to get everybody home on schedule, you're going to be our last question before I do closing remarks. I will share some of the other questions to give space. I see a desperate hand at the back and I have to take it. No, desperate is good. That means keen, committed, desire to learn. When we're in this space, desperate is a good word. There we go.
Hi, good evening. My name is Monisola Ajutumobi. And as an aspiring lawyer and also law firm owner, I think just hearing your stories and your stories as well has been so truly inspiring. So I was just wondering, like, as a first year student, what do you think some skills or like factors of myself that I should build up to so I can get to where you are, for example?
I would say develop the skill of discipline, handing in your assignments on time, being self-motivated to start things, because it does follow you in practice. I was very much a procrastinator in my undergrad, and I'm very much a procrastinator now in my practice, and I pay for it, right? And that's not fun. So they were laughing at me over there because I was chowing down on chicken wings because I said I haven't eaten all day because I had a hearing. I've been up since, like 5 a.m., was in court all day, had phone calls, came straight here. I wouldn't have had to do that, wake up early, had I not been on Instagram yesterday. So develop, I know it's so much easier said than done, but sometimes you have to push through the feeling of, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. And the hardest part is just starting. Just start it, and you don't have to have the perfect end result the first time. Do a version 1. That's my draft for today. And then tomorrow get back at it, because law is very much fast paced. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy work. I don't think I understood fully what lawyers did until, I was handed my first assignment and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I pulled an all-nighter, and just develop good skills from now. Get your work done now. Just focus on getting good grades. Focus on staying positive. If something happens, get over it quick and keep going, because it's a long journey.
Yeah, just to extend on that, discipline is super, super important. I would say also time management skills. That is like really crucial, having time management skills. I found in my practice, punctuality and being aware of when certain documents need to be submitted, and having attention to detail is so important too. There's situations where lawyers will draft and put motion materials together, and just because they're missing one page, you go before the judge, and the judge doesn't want to hear the motion just because that one page was missing. So attention to detail, time management skills, work on those, and you'll be successful.
Okay, thank you. 7:59. If we could pass the mic to our Darius Keener to learn.
Hi. Well, the question I was gonna ask was concerning like the accessibilities, because I do have like accommodations and stuff. So I just wanted to know like how is that dealt? Like, do they accommodate for people with disabilities, or like is it just normal all throughout?
So are you talking about like, well, within law school, if you're taking the bar exam or the LSAT, of course, that they absolutely do accommodate. I know that law firms as well absolutely will accommodate, as you know, we have a professional obligation to accommodate. So I wouldn't be dissuaded at all.
Thank you for that. That's really reassuring. And yes, that's the beautiful thing about the profession and higher ed, is that they do make space for these accommodations, whether it be for preparing for your exams or working within the institution itself to ensure that you feel seen and supported in that space. So at this note, I just want to say thank you. Let's give the panelists a big round of applause. As you can see from the many questions, they really value you being here. I've been at the university for 18 years now, and it's always very exciting for me to see alumni and our industry professionals come on campus to share with our students. I get the privilege of learning so much as well, so I just really want to say thank you for that very much so. But we have a few more thank yous to extend tonight as well. So I want to take a moment just to acknowledge our sponsors. We did receive the Pillar Sponsorship Award from Manulife and TD Bank, and we want to thank them for their contributions. The sweet, sweet food at the back was as a result of their funding. So they're not here, but we could still give them a round of applause. Now, it couldn't be done, like any good event can't be done without the people who've done the work. So I want to thank the executive team for the UTM chapter of Black Future Lawyers. Whoa, whoa! Yes, right. And the Black Literature Club at UTM. You guys, when we started planning and talking about the needs of our Black students on campus, you guys put your hand up to collaborate and work with each other to launch this opportunity. So thank you for not only bringing your students together, but bringing us as departments. I'm with the Career Center. We've been able to engage the Center for Student Engagement, the Equity and Diversity and Inclusion Office. And Ben, thank you so much. You've taken on so much work here tonight, the Alumni Office. Ben, I'm just gonna extend all the work that you've done in helping us put the panel together and all of your support in terms of coordinating with Ruth. Where's Miss Ruth? So I'm gonna call Ruth Mrs. Moneybags because I remember meeting her walking on campus and she's like, hey, let's do this. And she came up with this idea of all the Black student groups coming in, sitting together, connecting with one another, bringing all the departments together for us to really discuss what Black students want. And this initiative and event came out of it. So Ruth, thank you for always being so caring and concerned of our community. And just, like, I don't know about you guys, but creating space for us to have Black excellence on campus. You guys have showcased all that you guys have to offer, but you guys, let's talk about our participants online and all of you guys who took the time. It was snowing, my gosh. I was so concerned, I can't lie, because rain and me don't real mix, so add snow, I was a little bit concerned. So thank you all very much for taking the time to come out here tonight and join us. It just shows how dedicated you are for your own career journey. And I just see a bunch of future great, amazing people, whether you pursue the legal profession, whatever pathway you choose, I know you're going to do great because you're dedicated to what you desire, and your willingness to learn is what's going to advance you forward. So I just want to say thank you all to everyone in all the ways and you've participated tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Now, I would tell you, like my mother usually say, text me when you get home so I know you're home safe, but we know that won't work out. So I'm just gonna wish everyone safe travels on their journey home this evening, and just take a chance. Remember what the advice you got. All of you guys are your network, so connect with those who are here while they're here. I wish you guys continued success as you pursue your bar exam and the rest of your legal studies. And you guys just keep making that cha-ching, okay? Thank you.